into open mic. If you do not wish to be on the videotape, let us know. Otherwise, you will be videoed. Okay?
Was I videoed?
Yeah. Thanks, God, and Natalie, you were videoed.
And it will be on YouTube. It will go up on YouTube. So if you don't want to be videoed, then you need to think. Okay, so our first three, we'll have 8 readers tonight, and our first 3 readers will be Brock DeChair, Isaac Kim, and Diane Hardy.
All right.
Kat and Natalie would go back there to sell their books.
Yeah, go back and buy books.
Hi, I'm Brock. I've been writing for about 50 years, and it wasn't until last year that I think I found my natural genre, and that genre is the rant. And I've written about 20 of them so far. I think I'm going to try for about 100, and then maybe I'll go on to other things. The problem with trying to read rants aloud is that almost all of them are incredibly offensive to somebody or another. So I decided I'm just going to read one, and this is the one that was sort of an answer to my critics that don't exist, but the imaginary critics who are saying, why are you always so negative? Why do you always complain about things? So this is called I Can Be As Positive. I can be as positive as the next misguided dweeb. I can claim more Bear Rivers range sunrises and Wellsville sunsets than anyone else in the valley. I sniff the fetid, rotting roses, stick my face in the mossy linings of waterfalls cascading forth from the sides of dry hills. Never miss the deep powder of the bee, get excited by one good word choice in 5 pages of dross. Write victory when I create an effective handout or cut 2 words from a poem. Sit with my wife on the driveway facing west and praise the clouds until dust swallows us. But if you ask me to justify my bubble of fat cat complacency, I have no defense. And if you say you see hope on the horizon, if only we could rid the world of those head-chopping Muslims, you overlook the fact that our African-American president, who before he took office appeared to have more appreciation than any other president for the inequities of the world and the systems that thrive in them, is still ordering drone strikes. And is alien death from the sky really any better than the head whacked off, the blood spurting high?
Yes, I think I do, yeah. Engineering difficulties. That's good.
That's good.
Yes, sir.
You can adjust your own mic.
I think so. You might want to pull it out so it's top low. So kind of.
Okay, shine on.
That's right. Building drama. This poem was originally titled. This poem was originally titled "Remembering Brenda." It won the League of Utah Writers Best in Show at the conference that was this September. This poem was first started out a poem about a serial killer by the name of Gerald Galgos. And the town I'm from, Callio, is really tiny. And every old woman is an aunt and every old man is an uncle. And when Brenda Judd disappeared, it was a whole community tragedy. And they first thought that Brenda had ran away, but the mother knew her daughter had ran away, and she knew something had happened. And it wasn't until they captured her killer that he confessed. But he only partially confessed because he wanted benefits. He was already on death row, and he wanted benefits for telling them where the victims were. and he went to his grave, never telling where Brenda went. And the first one was full of anger and rage, and then I decided that the man who killed Brenda didn't belong in poetry, and that one of my first memories is of Brenda Judd, and she was 14 years old, and she was alive. And so I wrote this poem about Brenda Judd and her mother, and this is called Girl Before the Wind. Deep Creek in the wind-blown valley calls its bones home. The memory dream blonde-haired girl who called me tiger, who disappeared but did not run away over the hills, golden hair flying, did not run away at all, but lay in the salt marsh reeds until they raised her bones. The saints that placed her on linen cloth, saints that gave her bones to her mother, the mother that buried her daughter without a coffin under a painting from a portrait taken before June of 1979. After the spring, her grandmother brought her to my 4th birthday, after she gave me a silver foil box with a robin egg blue bow. And I should remember, a silver foil box with a robin's egg blue bow. And I can't remember what it was, what she gave me. And I should remember, but the mother remembered, never forgot, even after the day they brought her daughter back and placed her in a family plot, where the meadow grass grows gold in October, haloed in the light of memory dream and a silver foil box, and the girl that will run forever for the wind that calls her. Sorry. No damage done.
This is from a childhood memoir that I wrote. I wrote it a long time ago, and it's about an event a very long time ago. Some things in your childhood you don't forget. It's called Carnal Knowledge. I first heard the word sex in 1947 when I was 4. A couple with 2 daughters bought our Mighton house when we moved to Roosevelt, 10 miles northeast. I came to know the girls, Carol and Marilyn, when I stayed at Grandma and Grandpa's house some weekends. Mama said I could play with them, but not at their house. I'd overheard Daddy and Mama talking about the girls' family. They whispered about the parents who lived together but weren't married. I didn't understand. Aren't moms and dads always married? I knew something was wrong, but I never mentioned anything to Carol or Marilyn. Just the word sex seemed secretive and shameful, and I could tell by the way Grandma and Grandpa acted, they knew about those parents too. July was scalding hot. Mary came home from her friend Jeannie's house, where she saw Jeannie's new baby brother. It's hot and there's nothing to do, she complained. Well, let's see, said Mama. Why don't you and Diane spread a blanket under the willow tree and play with the dolls you got last Christmas? I hate that, Mama, I asserted. 7 is way too old to be playing with dolls. It's not either, yelled Mary. I'm 9 and I love it. Besides, we don't have a baby to play with like Jeannie does. Why don't we, Mama? Mama acted like she didn't hear Mary. I'll come out and lie on the blanket with you girls. I can watch and read at the same time. Watch you and read at the same time, she said. That settled it. We took our things out into the backyard. Mary laid her doll Becky's clothes out in neat rows and tried on one outfit after another. I licked my finger, wiped my naked doll's dirty face, and tried to borrow clothing from Mary because mine was lost. "Look at your doll," Mary said. "You don't even have a name for her." "I do too," I retorted. "What is it?" "Rory." "Rory? That's not a name. You just made that up and you're not getting any of my doll's clothes." Mama looked up from her book with a consolatory smile. The sun beat down on us and we were soon sweating. I moved to find better shade close to the house until Mary's question brought me back. "How do mothers get babies?" Mama replied without looking up from her book. "The baby grows from an egg inside the mother, Mary. You've seen women at church in maternity clothes. Their tummies get bigger, and when the time is right, the baby is born." She went back to reading. A minute later, "How does the egg get into the mother's stomach?" "We'll talk about this later," Mama said impatiently. "You girls go ahead and play with your dolls." Knowing this was a way to exclude me from the conversation, I cried, "No, Mama. If Mary gets to know, I do too." Mama said guardedly, "The egg is already inside of the mother, and when the father fertilizes it, a baby grows. It's getting really hot, girls. Maybe we should go inside." "No, Mama," Mary and I said in unison. She again went back to her book, but her hand was shaking and she didn't turn the pages as fast as usual. "How does the father fertilize the egg?" Mary queried. Mama, flustered and with a red face, muttered, "It's called mating. The father deposits sperm into the mother and the baby grows for 9 months before being born." I moved in closer in order to hear better. "Where does he get sperm?" demanded Mary. Mama yanked a corner of the blanket up to her face and wiped vigorously. Mary and I fastened our eyes on her and waited. She softly said, "It grows inside the father's body, just like the egg does in the mother's body." "How does he deposit the sperm?" Mary countered. Then, unable to contain herself any longer, she leapt up from the blanket and jumped up and down. "He puts it into her pee-pee with his pee-pee!" she squealed. Mama trembled, dropped her book and whimpered, "Yes, Mary, it's called mating." I looked from one to another, thoroughly confused. "Does he pee in her?" "Sort of," Mary honked, waving her arms with delight. "Oh, the shame of it. You and Daddy don't, do you, Mama?" "You nitwit," Mary sneered amid peals of laughter. "How do you think they got you?" "Jeannie says parents do it sometimes for fun, even when they're not trying to make a baby." "Fun?" I gasped, searching Mom's face. She was pallid and wouldn't look at me nor answer. "Tell me," I cried. "I have to, Diane," she shrugged. "Men want to do it. They just like sex." "Sex? Is that what this is?" I grabbed my doll and leapt to my feet. Sobbing, I twisted her head until it snapped off. Flinging it across the yard, then racing toward the house, I screamed, "I won't do it! I'm never making a baby!"
That was great, thank you. Our next three readers are Erin Tim, Brittany McDonald, and Billy Tullis.
Hello. Okay, this isn't Mitch's microphone. I knew how to do that one. Is it the same? It's kind of the same. Huzzah! I've succeeded. Okay, so anyway, hi. I'm Ann. Okay, so I'm reading two poems tonight. One requires a teensy bit of explanation. I guess maybe they both do. Okay, so I'm in a poetry class, and one of the assignments was we had to write a poem that sort of mirrored either Walt Whitman or Emily Dickinson. And so I chose Whitman. But to explain that poem, because it makes no sense, I'm reading a poem that Isaac wrote. So, all right. Okay, so this poem is called The City, and it's by Isaac Tim. Seated in the old typing desk, I draw a city. From my lair in the back of the room, geography lesson droning on. Bolivia, producing 20% of all the world's bauxite, the main source of aluminum, named after Le Beau, France. I draw the line of a harbor, the blunt teeth of wood docks, then a line to the north, a rising hill whose fort surveys the smoke haze murmuring streets thronged with growling wolfmen and pale-eyed elves draped with silk of the purest kind, that once glowed between the mulberry trees as harvesters passed under branches with their paper lanterns. And the elves' fairy gold and silver sleeves shine, runes of their secret art, songs that were sung in wooded places, never heard by the ears of men. Then I create a curved wall that follows the line that runs from her hairline down her bare shoulder to the edge of her cranberry blouse. This wall holds the noble palaces away from the roiling masses of the bazaar, passing under the high silver gate guarded by faceless men whose helmets make them look like crows, runs the great wide avenue, bordered by golden-leafed trees whose white blossoms smell of her honey-scented perfume. The classroom bursts with escaping sound as students pour through doors to capture lunch, flirtations, heat of bodies, and shocking brief touches of bare skin. She passes my desk, rolling her eyes. D&D? And what is this now? A map? I blink, then flatly, this is Caliban, a city I drew. And this is the poem that was inspired by that and inspired by, well, sort of a parody, I guess, of Walt Whitman's song, not Song Myself, I Hear America Sing. So this is called I Hear Caliban Sing. I hear Caliban singing, the songs of the city waking, the song of the bakers as they begin stoking early morning fires, the song of the gaymen scattered by their handlers to pick pockets and filch the occasional hat, the gnolls mewling in alleyways, looking to lure the incautious guard into the trap, the song of rats in the hall of the vile as they feast on their unfortunate human breakfast, the sighing song of washerwomen as they watch the half-elf guards conducting their daily calisthenics. The white-clad priest sings to the children in his care. The singing of the forge is heard, the clattering and hissing of new-made steel. The rumble of dwarves' voices match the deep rumble of their ore cart as it clatters over the cobbles. This is the gilded city waking. Each citizen sings a song all their own. The songs of daylight and of dark, a royal maid and paid assassin. Caliban singing a song for the entire world. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Haven't been up here for a while, so I'm freaking out like this much. I was talking to Millie about it. She's like, we can just run. Okay, I have a couple of parent poems, and I'm embarrassed by this first one because I wrote it for Shannon's class, and she's seen the first draft, and I haven't incorporated her edits yet. But it's called Mother. I bit the hand that fed me with a mouthful of needles. My mother, her ears bleeding as I pricked them with, I can't do this. I was the pod that she watched and never knew was on a dead coil, her voice constantly licking the strenuous bones of my thoughts. I pray for you. Didn't I try, Mother? Didn't I let you claw my childhood waned into golden spirals? Didn't I sit for you, behind preachers, behind sewing machines, behind desks, behind kitchen sinks? Didn't I let you pull my face apart so your braids could be perfect? Didn't I try? And my next one is kind of a daddy poem. Actually, I've been reading a lot of stories about child abuse, mostly on accident. And so that's what this poem's about. And it doesn't have a title because I don't want to title it, actually. Weren't you just next to me, twitching in the dark? Didn't you say that you loved me? Wasn't I just dreaming? Didn't I used to sit on my father's lap with nothing in my head but pigtails? Back when I stayed up waiting for him, before I understood bar and sober, listening to him pray about my mother before I heard him throw up. Didn't he drop me when I was 7 because I kissed him with my tongue? Didn't I have it coming? Wasn't I innocent each morning my uncle called me to his bed? Wasn't I lost, a child between king-size sheets and hairy purple skin? Weren't we pure white slates before we were told my body was sexual? Weren't we told how guilty we were? Didn't you puke? Didn't you spend years scratching yourself with pens, counting powdery pills? Wasn't I 11? Didn't we forget where we started when you punched holes in walls and I got thrown down hallways? Couldn't you feel the hole? Didn't it swallow us? Or did we climb in? Thank you.
So here I tried to convince Brittany to run and she held me back. So I'm going to read a poem I wrote called Spontaneous Desires. My hands, made of screeching gold, have every right. They are just as wise, dumb, beautiful, or wicked as yours, motherfucker. And every touch they make, every mixing of oils and elements is beautiful. Simply, perfectly, only because it is so. And if it is so, there was no other way. They are too short, too long, too much skin, too much pink, yellow, red, brown, blue, black, but it all, yes, does not matter, right? Because they change even as I look at them stretched, aching, as they always seem to be.
I love it when my students say motherfucker.
Okay, our last two readers for tonight are Felicia Rose and Amy Blakey.
Hi, my name is Felicia, and this is a short story. It's a work in progress. I just started it. I'm very nervous. Okay, it's called Yofi, and Yofi is the name of Sigmund Freud's dog. Okay. 6 months after I retired from my job at the library, my psychiatrist advised me to get a dog. I don't like dogs, I said. Perhaps you'll learn to. She jotted the word dog on a script and handed it to me. Her familiar soft brown eyes, salt and pepper hair, and silvery voice offered a modicum of comfort. Still, I said, somehow I doubt it. Look, George, I've known you for 7 years. You've tried hypnosis, meditation, and yoga. Why not try a dog? I adjusted my tie and smoothed a crease in my vest. Imagine dog hairs on the oriental rug, I said, or heaven forbid, piddle on hardwood floors. You're an active man, George. If I up your medication, you'll spend your retirement in an armchair with an Afghan over your lap. You know I seldom give advice, but now here it is. Take that prescription and get a dog. After the session, I walked up Madison to 81st and then turned east. It was a brilliant winter day, and tidy white-haired ladies walked miniature poodles with matching white hair. A man wearing a bow tie and houndstooth suit strolled along 3rd. His Scottish terrier wore a Glen plaid coat. Both the man and the dog boasted a calm, self-contained mien. At home, I brewed a cup of Viennese coffee and drank it over the Times. An article in the science section discussed the side effects of a certain medication. I'd never heard of the drug. Still, my heart raced. I breathed deeply to calm my nerves. Then I went to the kitchen to wash the cup. I retained privileges at the university library, so the next day I headed downtown. 2 canine-themed books caught my eye. I borrowed them and continued my walk. Along the way, I imagined owning a Scottish terrier, black and sleek like the one I'd seen. But though fit, I verge on stout. Walking a petite dog would highlight my girth. A dog run at Mercer and Houston roused me from my thoughts. 8 or 10 motley hounds barked and ran and peed. Their owners, dressed in sundry versions of grunge, tossed soggy tennis balls to their charges. One young man used newspaper to dispose of the scat. As he carried the parcel to the refuse bin, the contents fell on his shoe. No, I said to the psychiatrist the following week. A dog is out of the question. Next thing you know, I'll be living in a mud slosh dive. Really, George, must everything be a slippery slope? Karen, you know very well I can't even live with another human being. Remember what I told you about my college roommate who put his shoes on the bed? Look, it's your life, George, but you aren't getting any younger. Maybe a dog will give you a chance to focus on another creature's needs, get outside of your head for a while. I fingered the chain on my pocket watch and then checked the time. Perhaps, I said. That night I sat in my armchair and perused the books. Several breeds drew my attention. I especially liked the ones depicted in Renaissance art. They, along with their masters, appeared well-groomed and staunch. I put my feet on the ottoman and removed a piece of lint from my robe. A dog might be lying beside me just now. A mastiff seemed a solid choice, but it required more space than a one-bedroom apartment afforded. A basset hound sounded appealing for its size, but it slobbered and howled. I read on. Apparently, Freud had a chow. The photo before me depicted the analyst hunched in his chair, his arm around his pet. His three-piece suit appeared impeccable. So did his office. Still, to be on the safe side, the following day I increased my service with heavenly maids. Then I searched for a dog. A week later, I brought home a chow. For the first 5 minutes, Yofi stood in the hallway on the hardwood floor and stared at a piece of lint. So as not to disturb her, I laid my overcoat on the armchair and stared as well. When the mantel clock struck 12, I said, "Yofi, would you like some lunch?" She ignored me. Finally, I had no choice but to remove the object of her attention and place it in the trash. She looked at me with soft brown eyes. I imagined I saw a thanks. According to the lady at the kennel, Yofi had been a surrender dog. The previous owner, an elderly man, could no longer attend her. It's not easy in the city, she'd said, you know, having to walk them 2 or 3 times a day. The poor man didn't even have an elevator. He had to take her up and down 4 flights of stairs, morning, noon, and night. "I'm in fine fettle," I said. I meant it, of course, in a physical sense. She nodded and handed me the leash. After lunch, Yofi and I walked along Museum Mile. I felt dapper in my tweed overcoat and flat cap with Yofi by my side. Several poodles approached to sniff her, and the white-haired ladies nodded faintly, and then, unsmiling, looked away. As we turned down Second, Yofi and I passed the man with the Scottish Terrier. His dark wool pants fit his sturdy figure well, even when he bent to clean up after his dog, which he did with a plume. When we returned to the apartment, I removed my shoes, and Yofi spent a good 20 minutes cleaning her paws. She licked them meticulously, producing a sound akin to that of sucking on a marrow-filled bone. Then she jumped on the armchair. My heart raced, and I yelled at her to get down. She did so, but then went to the corner to sulk. Feeling despondent about the matter, I invited her to sit beside me on the sofa. She laid her head on my lap, and I pet her as I read. The radiator in the psychiatrist's office blasted steam, fogging the window and all but concealing the air shaft on the other side. I unfolded my handkerchief and wiped my brow. "Karen," I said, "I wonder if this is cause for concern." "So, George, if I understand correctly, you're concerned about not being concerned." "Precisely. If I don't mind her on the sofa, if in fact I invite her to be on the sofa, the next thing you know, I'll not care if people wear shoes in the apartment, or for that matter, put them on the bed. And so my material life will be as disordered as my inner life. Might Yofi be making your inner life more serene?" One bright spring morning, Yofi sat by the door and wagged her tail. I placed my empty coffee cup in the sink and got the leash. We strolled along the East River Promenade, watching joggers and boats. When I sat on a bench, Yofi hunched beside me and placed her paw around my leg. On 2nd Avenue, the man with the Scottish Terrier headed in our direction. This time we nodded. Yofi gamboled in delight. It rained heavily for the next 4 days, and so we limited our walks to within a block of the building. White poodles abounded in raincoats and booties, but the white-haired ladies made themselves scarce. Instead, at the other end of the leashes were maids in black dresses with white aprons and trim. Yofi did her business, but then tugged on the leash toward the building. When we entered, she wiped her paws on the mat. I thought of the man with the Scottish Terrier, but did not see him again until the following Friday, when the rain cleared and Yofi and I ventured east. He had just finished curbing his dog and was now headed west. The two beasts pulled us toward one another. I breathed deeply and then spoke. I appreciate your doing your share to keep our city clean. It's rather inconsiderate that some people don't. He had a plangent voice which contrasted with self-assured eyes. We continued our discussion of tidiness and cleanliness and the city and dogs before proceeding to other matters. By the time we'd circled Conservatory Garden, I learned, among other details, that Lucian worked as a book editor specializing in Renaissance art. Well, George, the psychiatrist said, it's been what, a year now since you got Yofi? 8 months since Lucian came into your life? You were my first client in New York, and now you're my last. I trust you'll continue to function reasonably, which is to say within the normal range of neuroses. As for myself, I plan to retire. A month later, we had our final session. As a gift of appreciation, I gave her a photograph of Yofi savoring a bone on the oriental rug. She gave me a set of bookends. We thanked one another, and I removed a handkerchief from my pocket to dab my eyes. When I opened the apartment door, Yofi greeted me with a wag of her tail. I placed the bookends, 2 bronze canines, on the mantel beside the clock. Lucian suggested we name them after our dogs. Now the bronze versions of Bridget and Yofi stand neatly on the bookshelf, securing our canine-themed books. As for the actual Terrier and Chow, evenings they sit on either end of the sofa while Lucian and I relax between them and read.
So this poem actually started out as a prompt exercise in my maths poetry class with Dr. Gunsberg, and I've just been sort of playing with it and fiddling with it. So it's called Birthday Present. They covered her casket in foggy layers of black, river-rich dirt. I couldn't shake the feeling I didn't belong without her. To bear her name, and her mother's name too, into the future without understanding how to walk in their shoes. The funeral home laid hair combs in the bathrooms. The boys clamored for them, fought over them like swords, swishing the overgrown hair in front of their wet eyes like a defense against tears. Small baskets overflowing with muted silver candy rolls studded the hallway tables like tinsel on a Christmas tree. Soon divested of their glory by small hands and anxious women, the room took on the cloying scent of mint mixed with roses. After, at the house, food appeared as if by magic, plates heavily laden with roasted meats and chopped vegetables and breads and brownies and cakes and pastas and potatoes and jello salads and deviled eggs. Families swarmed, a constant barrage of new faces and names I'd never met before, a sea overflowing with life despite her sudden absence. Shaking back and forth as I cried her name that night, for the first time I began to understand the strength she must have had to have lived so long and seen so much without complaint.
That's it for our readers tonight. Buy books and have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming today.